You suck. That's the voice I kept hearing in my head when no matter how many books I read or seminars I attended or content I consumed, nothing seemed to change or improve in my life. And on some level, I felt that it was my fault and that I must suck, or that I was hopelessly lazy and that I was not cut out for a better life. But on a way deeper level, I refused to believe any of that. And as a result of not giving up, I finally found the reason why nothing was changing, and that's what I want to share with you in this video. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Jorge Claus. I'm a business lawyer based in Florida, specializing in high-stakes lawsuits. And in this channel, we explore the principles and the strategies to help us live more productive, meaningful, and fulfilling lives. So if you consider yourself an ambitious but lazy person, there's 7 mental reframes that I want to share with you that can shift the way you look at the problem and thus shift the solution that you apply. The first reframe is that you're not lazy, you just talk too much. Oftentimes, ambitious but lazy people talk a lot about what they want to do, but don't follow up on any of it. And part of the reason for that is because when we talk about what we want to do, we get a little bit of a dopamine spike from talking about the thing. And if we talk a lot about it and we speak on it with a lot of emotion, we get even greater dopamine spikes. And so when we have those dopamine spikes, our mind on some level feels like it's already achieved the thing. In fact, a lot of research has shown that your mind responds very similarly, if not identically, to something that's imagined and something that's real. And so if you talk about something, you're imagining yourself achieving the thing, and oftentimes that makes you feel like you've already achieved the thing, and so then you're all dopamined out and you don't have the dopamine necessary to go and push and pursue the actual goal with actual action instead of talk. And so sometimes it's better to just stop talking and just get to work. The second mental reframe is that you're not lazy, you're just afraid. Oftentimes when we set out to do things and we talk about how we're going to do things and then we don't end up taking any action on it, we can conclude that we're just hopelessly lazy. But if we look a little deeper, we might find that we're not lazy, we're actually just afraid. We're afraid of what if I don't achieve the thing? We're afraid of what if people laugh at me? We're afraid of what if I find out that I'm not all that? And it is these fears, not laziness, it is these fears that keep us from acting. And so understanding this mental reframe will help you instead of having a disempowering belief that you are hopelessly lazy. If you dig a little deeper and you find that there's some fear there, you can address the actual problem, which is the fear. And once the actual problem has been addressed, you're not lazy anymore. But in order to resolve the fear, you must address the fear. And in order to address the fear, you must identify the fear. The third mental reframe is that you're not lazy, you just don't believe that you deserve success. One of the most important principles in self-development is that we always act in congruence with our self-image. And anytime we deviate from that accepted self-image, we will course correct so we end up being in congruence with that self-image. So for example, if you have the self-image of someone who is fat and out of shape, no matter how much you try to work out and eat healthy, it's going to be very hard for you to become a healthy person if you have the self-image of someone who is fat and lazy, because every time you try to work out or eat healthy, your self-image will course correct you so you end up being in congruence with the self-image that you are fat and out of shape. And so if we truly believe that we don't deserve success, then we won't take action in the direction of our goals, because taking action in the direction of our goals makes that success much more likely. And if we don't believe that we deserve success, our self-image will not allow us to take the actions that will lead to that success. Now, there's 2 ways that you can combat this. Number 1 is by trying to change the belief itself, by telling yourself, convincing yourself, unpacking the belief that you want to change and altering it and changing it and inserting a new belief there, and then repeating that belief to yourself over and over and over again until you adopt that new belief. But I personally find that that alone is not enough, which is why there's a second way to change your self-image, which is to give yourself proof that that new self-image that you want to adopt is actually true. And so you might end up in a chicken or egg situation, which is, hey, I have a poor self-image, but I need proof, but my poor self-image keeps me from obtaining that proof. It's kind of like when you apply for a job and every job requires you to get experience, but how do you get experience if you can't get a job without experience? But anyways, in order to tackle this problem, something that you can do is to lower the level of proof that you are trying to get. And so if you want proof that you deserve success, you can do 2 things. Number 1, you can find proof that already exists for why you deserve success. In other words, find proof, find actual places in your life where you have already achieved success, and then use that to help reinforce that new self-image. And number two, instead of trying to give yourself proof that you deserve $1 million, start by giving yourself proof that you deserve 1,000, and then 5,000, and then 10,000, and then 50,000, and then 100,000. I'm using money because it's easy to use that as an example because numbers are easy to follow, but the concept applies to anything you're trying to change. So for example, if you're trying to lose weight, and this example also works well because it's also numbers, you don't have to give yourself proof that you can be 50 pounds lighter. You can start by giving yourself proof that you can be 10 pounds lighter, and then 20 pounds lighter, and then 30 pounds lighter. And so that way, because the initial step that you're taking is so small, your self-image will not get so much in the way of you achieving the proof that you want for your new self-image. The fourth mental reframe is that you're not lazy, you're just in the wrong environment. Now, this is by far the biggest one for me because back when I was reading all the books and taking all the courses and consuming all the content and nothing seemed to change, the thing that changed my behavior the most was putting myself in environments that enabled me to succeed. There's a term for this and it's called environmental exposure. And what environmental exposure is that when you expose yourself to a new environment, it changes how you think and it changes something very deep in you that doesn't really happen when you're just consuming content online. And so when you can put yourself live in these situations and you can take in the environment with all 5 of your senses, it impacts you and thus your behavior in a way that content on the internet won't. Now, don't get me wrong, content is great and you can learn so much from content. You can learn so much from the internet, from your phone. We live in an amazing time. But the one thing that changed my behavior the most was putting myself in an environment with people that, number 1, encouraged me, number 2, believed in me, and number 3, were already doing the things that I wanted to do. So it made it real for me. Instead of seeing somebody on the computer, on the internet, on my phone, I was seeing them in person. And when you see that in person, it changes something in you where you go, wait, that person's right there. They're literally right there. It's not somebody on the internet. They're literally right there. I can see them. I can feel them. I can smell them. That's weird, but they're right there. And you know what? If they can do it, I can do it too. And so if you're reading all these books and taking all these courses and consuming all this content, but nothing is changing, try going to a live event. Try going particularly to a mastermind where maybe the amount of people is smaller, but you can talk to somebody and really have a deep conversation with them, preferably something that's achieved what you want to achieve, so you can communicate with them and realize they're just a person. If they can do it, I can do it too. And then once that realization happens and that mental shift happens inside of you, you go back home and you're so much more, not just motivated, but because you believe truly that it is possible, you will follow up on the goals that you set for yourself. It's much easier to take action when you believe you can do something than when you just are not really sure whether it's going to happen or not. Now, obviously, there's no promises, but if you expose yourself and engage in deep conversation with somebody that's already achieved it, it makes it much more believable that you can do it too. The fifth mental reframe is that you're not lazy, you just have a weak discipline muscle. Now, I talk a lot about the discipline muscle because seeing discipline as a muscle is a very empowering way to look at discipline. Because oftentimes what we do is we look at discipline as this sort of immutable trait, as this thing of you either have it or you don't have it. And what that mindset ends up creating is a situation where anytime you're not disciplined, you beat yourself up and you say, oh, I'm just not a disciplined person. And then once you adopt the self-image that you're not a disciplined person, you will act in accordance with that self-image, and then you will therefore not be a disciplined person. But if you look at discipline as a muscle, you look at it as something that can be grown. When you fail to be disciplined, you see it as a realization that you can build your discipline muscle even further. And also, when things are tough and you want to push through, if you see the discipline as a muscle, you can use that tough moment to say, this is the moment where I can push through and build my discipline muscle, so that later in the future, it's easier in situations just like this one to exercise discipline. Because I exercised discipline this one time, I made my muscle stronger, and so in the future, it's going to be easier. Now, obviously, just lifting the weight once is not going to grow too much muscle, but if you do that over a long enough period of time, your muscle will 100% get bigger, and it will become much easier, not perfectly easy, but it will become a lot less hard to exercise discipline in that moment. And that actually ties very well into the sixth mental reframe, which is that you're not lazy, you just haven't developed the action habit. The action habit, or having a bias towards action, is simply just in moments of decision, do you have a bias towards action, or do you have a bias towards, let me just sit around and think about it some more? And if you can develop that action habit, if you can develop the habit of anytime I feel stuck, I try to do something. I try to take some form of action. That is my default mode whenever I feel stuck, is to move somewhere. Not to sit around and philosophize and pontificate and think about the situation 1,000 times over, but to do something that moves me in the direction of my goals. Not to let fear win and go over to the couch and do nothing, but to take the action that is going to get me closer to my goals. You do that over enough times that ends up being a habit. Both of those things are habits. If you have a habit of running away or overthinking, that will be the habit and that will be the default mode that you will go into anytime you're faced with a tough decision. Conversely, you can also build the opposite habit, which is the habit of anytime I'm faced with a tough situation, I just take some action and I start moving and I create momentum. And that momentum eventually leads to more momentum and it helps me solve whatever problem I was facing. And so it might not necessarily be that you're hopelessly lazy, it might just be your habits. If you developed a habit when you were younger of running away from your problems, that's what you're gonna do and you're never gonna take any action. But it's not that you're lazy, it's just that you have the wrong habit. And in order to remove that habit that's holding you back, try replacing it with a new habit. And the final mental reframe is that you're not lazy, you're just bad at prioritizing. When we are unable to prioritize and manage our time well, we end up sitting in front of our computer, in front of our desk, trying to think of the million things that we have to do and doing none of them. And then when we do nothing for the entire day, oftentimes we conclude that we are hopelessly lazy people. But that's not necessarily true. You might just have a problem with time management and prioritization. Maybe it's not that you're lazy, maybe it's just that the way that you operate, the way that you work is way too overwhelming for you to get any actual work done. And so if you can get organized and you can get prioritized and you can manage your time better and you have a list of the things that you have to do and you understand what's more important than the other, then you can actually get to work instead of sitting around filled with overwhelm and then concluding that you're just a hopelessly lazy person. Now, if that's you, that's basically what this entire channel is about. So if you want to join the community, make sure you subscribe, leave me a comment on what you liked and what you want to see more of. And if you like this video, I think you'll like this video right here on how to actually stick to your goals even when it gets hard. And as always, if you want more resources, feel free to check out the link in the description box below where you can go to my website and where you can download your copy of the 4-Step Morning Routine, a quick start guide to high performance and peace of mind. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video.